Hey everyone. So today we're going to discuss the cost of living here in San Antonio in 2023 and keep watching for the four top things that will affect how much house you can buy here in San Antonio.
Hi, this is Living Local San Antonio with Elise and Jay.
And that is Jay, and I'm Elise. And if you have any questions, if you want to discuss any of this, please feel free to reach out to us. Our information is in the description.
Yep, that's right. Please feel free to call, text, or email us. All right, well, to understand the cost of living, we're going to start by looking at income and jobs in the San Antonio, Texas area. So the average income for San Antonio for a person working full-time is about $40,000 to $50,000 a year. And above average salaries, let's say the middle class, that's going to be somebody making $60,000 to $80,000 a year. And being rich or making a decent income in San Antonio, or a good income in San Antonio, I should say, that would be over $100,000. And only about 20% of households are making that much money in San Antonio or fall into that category. And really, only about the top 5% make over $150,000 a year. But now what we want to do is talk about some of the typical jobs and income that kind of go with those jobs. So first off, just thinking about rideshare or Uber, Lyft, cab drivers, that type of job, they're going to make about $37,000 a year if they're working that full time. And then the other end of the spectrum, a CDL truck driver, they're going to make $50,000 plus a year. And of course, that's all dependent on, they do it overnight, long hauls, do they stay local, do they own their truck, do they rent it, all that kind of stuff. But they can really make some good money.
Our restaurant managers, which we got lots of restaurants, make between $50,000 and $65,000 a year.
And then local trades like plumbers, electricians, HVAC technicians, those types of trades, they're going to make about $60,000 a year. And again, that's one of those professions that you can take that as high as you want to go. If they're working really hard and starting up their own kind of subcontracting stuff, they can make a lot of money. But that's about average depending on what they're doing or where they're working.
So our office managers, let's move on to that. They make about $55,000 to $65,000 a year. And our beloved teachers make between $50,000 and $75,000 a year. And the average, of course, would be about $60,000 a year for teachers.
That's right. And then moving into those first responder type jobs, police in San Antonio, they're making average about $60,000 a year. And firefighters are averaging just a little bit more than that, about $68,000 a year. And then going into military, because San Antonio is a big military city, the military, if you're taking the middle of the road enlisted member of the military, somebody like an E6, they're making about $75,000 a year, or an O5 is making about $125,000 to $150,000 a year. And that's like a mid-grade officer. And remember, that's also including their BAH, which is that basic allowance for housing. So that number is based off of where they're serving and where they live at the time of that.
So our med techs make about $40,000 to $50,000 a year. Our EMTs are about $35,000 to $50,000 a year. Our nurses, our RNs, they are about $80,000 to $120,000 a year. Our college professors, they make between $75,000 and $100,000 a year. And if you want to work for the city of San Antonio or Bexar County, they make between $40,000 and $100,000 a year.
Yeah, and that really just depends on things like an entry-level employee versus somebody who's been there for 20 years, and then what area that they're specifically working in for the city or the county.
All right, so now let's talk about our top 10 employers here in San Antonio. Number one would be our joint base, San Antonio, Lackland, Fort Sam, and Camp Bullis combined. That is about 80,000 employees. And HEB, number two, would be 20,000 employees. Next, our big insurance and bank company is USAA, and they employ just over 18,000. And number four, our Methodist healthcare system, they employ just about under 10,000 employees. Five, Randolph Air Force Base, 11,000. Toyota and related suppliers here in San Antonio are 6,500. 7, 8, and 9 is Harlan Clark, Wells Fargo, and JP Morgan Chase. They employ about 5,000 each. And number 10 is Rackspace, and they employ about 2,000.
Yeah, and Elise also found out that Rackspace may employ up to maybe even 6,500 employees. But according to this chart here, they're still at number 10 with 2,000 employees. Now, shifting to some other major employers that are in San Antonio that we definitely like to mention them because they're a big part of the city. Companies like Accenture and SWBC, Valero, which I believe is still headquartered here in San Antonio, and then Frost Bank and AT&T. In fact, at one time, AT&T was headquartered here in San Antonio. I think they've moved that operation to Dallas now. There's also energy companies like Tesoro, plus Amazon, and CPS Energy, which is our local city public service that provides power production and gas. And then we've also got companies like New Star Energy, VisionWorks, and the Southwest Research Institute, which is located obviously on the southwest side of town. And there's also other big fun employers like Whataburger, iHeartMedia, and the Zachary Group. So that just kind of rounds out some other big employers that are in the city. And for sure, like we mentioned before, San Antonio's got a big population with a lot of public schools. And so the school districts are another big employer, and they actually have about 50,000 employees between the public school teachers, the staff, the administration, the support staff, all those types of things. And we're talking about all the districts from Northeast ISD, San Antonio ISD, Northside ISD, Alamo Heights, South San, Harlandale, and of course, East Central. Get your stingers up. The East Central ISD, go Hornets. So now we're going to discuss how all this information comes together and overall relates into the real estate market here in San Antonio. And so the big picture is that about 60% of the houses sold in San Antonio are between $250,000 and $500,000. And 60%, that's a big majority. And then we've got about 20% that are less than $250,000, and then about 20% that are more than $500,000. But that's what we want to focus on, is that big middle. In order to own a home in this price range that makes up that 60% of the market, you'll need to have an income of about $75,000 to $150,000. And again, that's a household income. So that could be two income earners in the household, each making $40,000, $50,000 or more. And the other thing is we're relating this to cost of living. So I just wanted to kind of talk about what makes up cost of living for a minute, right? And some of that is housing affordability, which we're just kind of talking about. And then obviously things like the cost of utilities like power and water and cable and Wi-Fi and what those things cost. And also another big part of the state is that we don't have any state income taxes. So obviously that affects San Antonio, and that's another big reason why we have a relatively low cost of living. And overall, San Antonio ranks 6th on the list of the 50 most affordable large cities in the United States.
Yeah, we are super affordable here, which is fantastic. All right. So very exciting stuff. What all we've been waiting for. The top 4 things that affect how much house you can buy here in San Antonio. Of course, cash is king. If you have enough saved up, then you can certainly buy a house for cash. If you have cash, these next 3 won't apply to you, but most of us will need a bank loan, which all 3 of these will apply. First thing is income and cash reserves. So basically, just sounds what it is, how much you make and how much you've saved. Number 2 is your debt to income, your DTI. So let's say you make $5,000 a month and your debt to income needs to be at 50%. You need 30% for household. Let's say 35% for household for your mortgage is $1,500. And your other 20% will be made up of your other debts. So that's about $1,000. And then the other 50% that lenders use are just your daily expenses, like your gasoline, groceries, entertainment. So that would give you a good idea of what you can afford, what your debt to income is. And number 3 would be your credit score, of course. Lenders do not use Credit Karma, so you can look at that all day, but that's not the exact thing that they're going to go off of. They use the credit bureaus, the 3 of them are Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. So let's say each one of those had your credit score, one at 600, one at 700, and one at 800. They're going to take your mid score, which is 700. So that's the way that works. And I know this is a lot of information, and we'd love to help. Information is in the description again.
Yeah, so please feel free to call, text, or email us. We'd love to help you out and explain some of these things if you have some questions. Again, thanks for watching. And as we like to say,
Keep Boston weird.
And keep San Antonio cool.